My mom, Brittany, is coming to visit us today. I invited her. She wants to see how we live and meet you." My daughter Brittany ran out of her room, gathering her hair into a ponytail as she walked. "Well, I guess it's time for me and her fan to meet her," I said. I picked up my grocery bags and headed for the kitchen. My daughter had been dating this guy for almost a month now. They met, as is often the case these days, at a disco. Brittany had told me a little about him, but I couldn't quite figure out what the deal was yet. But the fact that this David made me uneasy, that I felt some adult interest in him, alarmed me. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell rang. Brittany rushed to open it, nearly breaking her neck. "It's David, Mom." My daughter eagerly introduced a tall, stout young man. He wasn't handsome, but there was a masculine appeal about him. His muscular shoulders and mischievous eyes especially caught my attention. "Hello?" Well, David nodded politely, but his stare made me feel even more awkward. Looking at my daughter and this tough guy, I didn't think they would be a couple at all. I saw nothing good in the relationship between my still fairly malleable daughter and this grown man that David seemed to be. I sat in the kitchen with an inexplicable anxiety, listening to the sounds coming from the other room. I could barely hear his voice, mostly my daughter Brittany chirping. When the music started playing, the voices disappeared. I was 37 years old. I had married young, but divorced shortly after my daughter was born. Early marriages tend to be short-lived. My young husband was not ready for family life and a child. I did not put up with his antics, and we soon separated. Of course, then there were men in my life, but they were all fleeting. I was never able to experience either love or passion. Now my daughter was growing up fast, and all my energy went into raising her properly. "Dinner is ready," I exclaimed happily, bringing in the cherry pie. I set it on the table and again felt awkward and annoyed under the intense gaze of this young man. David said very little, but Brittany babbled on about all sorts of silly things. He didn't seem to be listening to her, absorbed in his own thoughts, and every now and then he cast searing glances in my direction. I couldn't take it anymore and went back to the kitchen. I thought back to my childhood and growing up nothing special, but I was academically capable. Boys didn't pay attention to me. I was always a homebody. So the first college boy who paid attention to me seemed like the epitome of everything I dreamed of, and I married him. Early marriages tend to be short-lived. My young husband was not ready to settle down and have a child in the house. I did not put up with his antics, and we soon separated. Of course, there were men in my life after that, but it was all fleeting. I never got to experience love or passion. Now, my daughter was growing up fast, and all my energies went into raising her properly. Soon, I heard a noise in the hallway and came out. "Leaving already?" I asked, looking at David. "Yes. Thank you for everything, especially the delicious pie." His smile was pleasant, and he looked quite boyish while doing it. David started coming more often, and a couple times he even jokingly called me mother-in-law. Our visits always followed the same pattern. I talked to him briefly, and then disappeared on some pretext, leaving the two of them alone. But one day, David came in, and my daughter wasn't home. "Hello, mother-in-law." David's velvety voice greeted me. "Hello, almost son-in-law," I replied, "but Brittany isn't home." I felt my cheeks flush and my hands tremble. Somehow, this guy really affected me. I busied myself with cleaning, feeling out of sorts because of David's unexpected visit. He followed me into the kitchen, leaning carelessly against the counter. "Brittany didn't mention that she has plans after school today. I hope you don't mind if I stop by your place," he said. "Actually, I wanted to chat with you too." I raised my eyebrows in surprise. "About what?" David scooted closer, his gaze becoming intense. "I just wanted you to know that my feelings for Brittany are genuine. I would never think of pressuring her or rushing things physically." He paused, seeming to choose his next words carefully. "And I can tell you she comes from a good family. You raised her well." I murmured words of thanks, touched by David's sincerity, but still wary of his maturity compared to my teenage daughter's naivete. For a while, we talked about Brittany's college plans and interests. I felt myself letting my guard down. As David got ready to leave, I walked him to the front door. "Thank you for being so respectful of Brittany," I said. "It shows good character. You're always welcome here." David smiled and leaned over to kiss my cheek. But at the last second, he deflected and grazed the corner of my mouth. I jumped back, my face flaming. David looked equally horrified. "I'm so sorry, Joan. I don't know that I—" His excuses cut off, and we stared at each other. Before I could finish the thought, I pulled David into an unexpected, hungry kiss. He responded instantly, pitting me against the wall. We loved each other frantically, right there in the hallway, all rational thought drowned out by adrenaline and physical need. I was acting on pure instinct, like a reckless teenager. All the years of buried longing for intimacy came to the surface. Afterward, we sat side by side on the couch, in our clothes, not looking at each other. The gravity of what had just happened came to me. "Joan," finally David said hoarsely, "please know that I care about Brittany very much. I would never hurt her, but it was a mistake," I finished abruptly, "one that we can never repeat or mention again. Brittany can never know." David agreed grimly. We fixed our disheveled clothes in tense silence. Over the next few weeks, David and Brittany's relationship grew stronger, and my interactions with David became more and more formal. The reckless encounter remained like a shadow between us. As I watched David and my daughter together, the mystery gnawed at me. Late one night, David showed up unexpectedly at my door with a distraught look on his face. Before I could react, he stepped forward and kissed me emphatically. I knew I should resist, but instead, I responded to his kiss with equal fervor. All reasonable arguments vanished, and we, limbs entwined in a ball, hurried to my room. The next morning, I woke up in David's arms, enveloped in euphoric bliss and terror. As he kissed me tenderly, last night came over me again. "We have to stop this," I moaned. "If Brittany finds out—" "She won't find out," David replied simply. "We'll be more careful from now on." "But I'm not giving up on Joan. I want you, only you." Hearing those words, I realized that our secret rendezvous had taken on a dangerous life of its own, and I was utterly powerless to resist. No matter the consequences,